Hola, ¿cómo estás? Oh, I'm back. Oh, yes, sir. All right, from where I stopped, almost about to finish this book. Damn, damn. Been a minute. Let's go. And towards the group as a whole, sometimes for the purpose of competing with other groups, the sociologist Lee Durkheim first developed this view of religion in 1912. What? In 1912, a religion is a unified system of disbelief and practices relative to sacred things. That is to say, things set apart and forbidden belief and practices which unite into one single moral community called the church, all those who adhere to them. Wilson shows how religious practices help members solve coordinated problems. Trust and therefore trade are greatly enhanced when all parties are parts of the same religious community, and when religious beliefs say that God knows and cares about the honesty of the parties. The anthropologist Pascal Boyer points out that God's ancestor spirits are often thought to be omniscient. Yes, yet omniscience, yet what they most care about in this vast universe is the moral intention hidden in the heart of the living. Respect for rules is enhanced when rules have an element of sadness, and when they are backed up by supernatural sanctions and the gossip or ostracism of one's peers. Wilson's is that ideas and brains that respond to these ideas co-evolved, even if the belief is supernatural entities emerged originally for some other reason or as an accidental byproduct in the evolution of cognition. As some scholars have claimed, groups that parlayed those beliefs into social coordination devices. For example, by linking them to emotions such as shame, fear, guilt, and love, found a cultural solution to the free rider problem, and then reaped the enormous benefit of trust and cooperation. If stronger beliefs led to greater individual benefits, or if a group developed a way to punish or exclude those who did not share in its belief. And practice coordination were perfect for the coevolution of religion and religious brains. Consistent with Wilson's proposal, the genetic gene hema sorry the genetic gene the geneticist the geneticist sorry oh, the geneticist Dean Hamer recently reported evidence from two studies that suggest a particular gene may be associated with a stronger tendency to have religious and self-transcendent experience. Religion, therefore, could have pulled human beings into the group selection loophole by making people long age feel act as though they were part of one body. Religion reduced the influence of individual selection, which shapes individuals to be selfish, and brought into play the force of group selection, which shapes individuals to work for the good of their group. but we didn't make it all the way through the loophole. Human nature is a complex mix of preparation for extreme selfishness and extreme altruism. Which side of our nature we express depends on culture and context. When opponents of evolution, sorry, when opponents of evolution object that human beings are not mere apes, they are correct. We are also part bees. Harmony and purpose. Reading Wilson's Darwin Cathedral is like taking a journey to Spaceland. You can look down on the vast tapestry of human culture, see why things are woven in ways that they are. Wilson says that his own private hell would be to be locked forever into a room full of people discussing the hypocrisies of religion. For example, that many religions preach love and compassion and virtue, yet sometimes cause war, hatred, and terrorism. From Wilson's higher perspective, there is no contradiction. There is no contradiction. Group selection creates interlocking genetics and cultural adaptation and enhances peace, harmony, and cooperation within the group for the express purpose of increasing the group's ability to compete with other groups. Group selection does not end conflict; it just pushes it up to the next level of social origination or organization. Atrocities committed in the name of religion are almost always committed against outgroup members or against the most dangerous people of all, apostates who try to leave the group, and traitors who undermine the group. A second puzzle that Wilson can solve is why mysticism. A second puzzle that Wilson can solve is why mysticism everywhere and always is why mysticism everywhere and always is about transcending the self and merging with something larger than the self. When William James analyzed mysticism, he focused on the psychological state of cosmic consciousness and on the technique developed in all the major religions to attain it. Hindus, Buddhists use meditation and yoga to attain the state of samadhi, samadhi, in which the subject's object distinction and one sense of individual self disappears in a state almost down, usually described as one of the supreme peace, bliss, and illumination. James found much that James found much the goal in Christian and Muslim mysticism, often attained through repetitive prayer. He quoted the 11th century Muslim philosopher Ghazali, who spent several years worshiping with the Sufis of Syria. Al Ghazali attained the experience of transport and revelation that he said cannot be described in words, although he did try to explain to his Muslim readers the essence of Sufism. The first condition for a sophist is to purge his heart entirely of all that is not good, of all that is not God. The next key of the contemplative life consists in the humble prayer, which escape from the fervent soul, and in the meditation on God, in which the heart is swallowed up entirely. But in reality, this is only the beginning of the sophist life and end of sophist being total absorption on God, beginning of Sophie's life, and the end of Sophie's is in being total absorption in God. From William's perspective, mystical experience is an off button for the self. When the self is turned off, people become just a cell in the larger body, a bee in the larger hive. It is no wonder that after effects of mystical experience are predictable, people usually feel a strong commitment to God or to helping others, often by bringing them to God. The neuroscientist Andrew Newberg has studied the brain of people undergoing mystical experience, mostly during meditation, and has found where that off switch might and has found where that off switch might be in the rear portion of the brain's partial lobe. Under the rear portion of the top of the skull are two patches of cortex Newberg calls the orientation association area. The patch in the left hemisphere appears to contribute to the mental sensation of having a limited physical benefit but and physically defined body, and thus keeps track of your edge. The corresponding area in the right hemisphere maintains a map of the space around you. These two areas receive inputs from your senses to help them maintain an ongoing representation on yourself and its location in space. At the very moment that people report achieving states of mythical unions, these two areas appear to cut off inputs from other parts of the brain is reduced, and overall activity in those orientation areas is reduced too. But Newberg believes they are still trying to do their job. The area on the left tries to establish the body's boundaries and doesn't find them. The area on the right tries to establish the self's location in space and doesn't find it. The person experiences a loss of self combination, loss of self combined with a paradoxical expansion of the self out into space, yet with no fixed location in the normal world or three dimension. The person feels merged with something vast, something larger than the self. Newberg's belief Newberg believes that rituals that involve repetitive movement and chanting, particularly when they are performed by many people at the same time, help to set up resonance patterns in the brain of the participants that make these mythical states more likely to happen. The historian Williams McNeill, drawing on very different data, came to the same conclusion when McNeill was drafted into the U.S. Army in 1941. Basically, training required that he match for hundreds of hours on the drill field in close formation with a few dozen other men. At first, McNeil thought the marching was just a way to pass the time because his base had no weapon with which to train. But after a few weeks of training, the marching began to induce in him an altered state of consciousness. Words are inadequate to describe the emotion aroused by the prolonged movements in unison that drilling involved. A sense of pervasive well-being is what I recall. More specifically, a strange sense of personal enlargement, a sort of swelling out, becoming bigger than life thanks to participating in the collective ritual. Decades later, McNeil studied the role that synchronized movements in dance, religious ritual, and military training has played in history in keeping together in time. He concluded that human society, since the beginning of recorded history, have used synchronized movement to create harmony and cohesion within groups, sometimes in the service of preparing for hostility with other groups. McNeil's conclusion suggests that synchronized movement and chanting might be evolved mechanisms for activating the altruistic movement, the more altruistic motivation created in the process of group selection. The extreme self-sacrifice characteristics of group selected species such as ants and bees can often be found among soldiers. McNeil's quotes an extraordinary passage from the book The Warrior Reflection of Men in Battle that describes the thrilling communal states that soldiers sometimes enter. I passes insensibly into a we it passes insensibly into a we. My becomes ours, and the individual fate loses its central importance. I believe that is nothing less than the assurance of immortality that makes self-sacrifice at these moments so relatively easy. I may fall but do not die. For that which is real in me goes forward and lives on in the comrade for whom I gave up my life. There is indeed something larger than the self, able to provide people with a sense of purpose. They think what's dying for. The group, of course. One group's noble purpose is sometimes another group's pure love. One group's noble purpose is sometimes another group's pure love. One group's noble purpose is sometimes another group's pure evil. What am I reading? Oh my goodness. The meaning of life. What can you do to have a good, happy, fulfilling, and meaningful life? What is the answer to the question of purpose within life? I believe the answer can be found only by understanding the kind of creatures that we are divided in. The many ways we are divided. We are shaped by individual selection to be selfish creatures who struggle for who struggle for resources, pleasure, and prestige. And we were shaped by group selection to be hive creatures who long to lose ourselves in something larger. We are social creatures who need love and attachment, and we are industrious creatures with a need for effectance, able to enter a state of virtual engagement with our work. We are the rider, we are the elephant, and our mental health depends on the two working together, each drawing on the other strengths. I don't believe there is an inspiring answer to the question, what is the purpose of life? Yet, by drawing on with ancient wisdom and modern science, we can find compelling answers to the question of purpose within life. The final version of the happiness hypothesis is that happiness comes from between. Happiness is not something that you can find, acquire, or achieve directly. You have to get the conditions right and then wait. Some of these conditions are within you, such as coherence among the parts and levels of your personality. Other conditions require relationship to things beyond you, just as plants need sun, water, and good soil to thrive. People need love, work, and connections to something larger. It is worth striving to get the right relationship between yourself and others, between yourself and your work, and between yourself and something larger than yourself. If you get those relationships right, a sense of purpose and meaning will emerge. All right, finish chapter 10. I have the last chapter, which I will dive into right now. Literally 2 pages. Conclusion on balance. All things come into being by conflict of opposites. Without contraries is no progression. Without contraries is no progression. Attraction and repulsion, reason and energy, love and hate are necessary to human existence. William Blake. The ancient Chinese symbol of yin and yang represents the value of the eternal shifting balance between seamlessly opposed principles as the epigram above the with Heraclitus, Heraclitus and Blake show this is not just an Eastern idea, it is the great idea, a timeless insight that, in a way, summarizes the rest of the book. Religion and science, for example, are often thought to be opponents, but as I have shown, the insights of ancient religion and of modern science are both needed to reach a full understanding of human nature and the condition of human satisfaction. The ancients may have known little about biology, chemistry, and physics, but many were good psychologists. Psychology and religion can benefit by taking each other seriously, or at least by agreeing to learn from each other while overlooking the area of in uh, irreconcilable differences. The Eastern and Western approach to life are also said to be opposed. The Eastern stresses acceptance and collectivism. The West encourages striving and individualism. But as we have seen, both perspectives are valuable. Happiness requires changing yourself and changing your world. It requires your goals, pushing your own goals and fitting in with others. Different people at different times in their lives will benefit from drawing more heavily on one's approach or the other. And finally, liberals and conservatives are opponents in the most literal sense, each using the myth of pure evil to demonize the other side and unite their own. But the most important lesson I have learned in my 20 years of research on morality is that nearly all people are morally motivated. Selfishness is a powerful force, particularly in the decision of individuals. But whenever groups of people come together to make a sustained effort. But whenever groups of individual or of people come together to make a sustained effort to change the world, you can bet that they are pursuing a version of virtue, justice, or sacredness. Material self-interest does not. Material self-interest does little to explain the passion of partisans on issues such as abortion, the environment, or the role of religion in public life. Self interest certainly cannot explain terrorism, but a selflessness made possible by group selection can. An important dictum of cultural psychology is that each culture develops expertise in some aspects of life existence, but no culture can be experts in all aspects. The same goes for the two ends of the political spectrum. My research confirms that the common perception that liberals are experts in thinking about issues of victimization, equality, autonomy, and the rights of individuals, particularly those of minorities and nonconformists. Conservatives, on the other hand, are experts in thinking about the loyalty to the group, respect for authority and tradition, and sacredness. When one side overwhelms the other, the results are likely to be ugly. A society without liberals would be harsh and oppressive to many individuals. A society without conservatives will lose many of the social structure and constraints that Durkheim showed as so valuable. Anommies would increase along with freedom and knowledge will increase along with freedom. A good place to look for wisdom, therefore, is where you least expect to find it in the minds of your opponents. You already know the ideas common on your own side. If you can take off the blinders of the myth of pure evil, you might see some good ideas for the first time by drawing on wisdom that is balanced, ancient, and new. Eastern and Western, even liberal and conservatives, we can choose directions in life that will lead to to satisfaction, happiness, and a sense of meaning. We can't simply select a destination and then walk there directly. The rider does not have that much authority, but by drawing on humanity's greatest ideas and best science, we can train the elephants, know our possibilities as well as our limits, and live wisely. Finally, after how many months, I finally finished it. Oh, yeah, nice. Thanks. Bam. Bam.